The burden of the gods was far too heavy. The labor unbearably hard. Let mankind carry the weight of the gods. Atrahasis poem, Mesopotamia. What if the ancient gods were more than mere myths? Could it be time to rewrite the history of humanity? References to the Anunnaki come from cuneiform tablets recounting Sumerian myths. They are portrayed as deities who shaped the world and oversee the earth. In the Epic of Atrahasis, a Babylonian epic poem, the higher gods determine destiny. Meanwhile, the Ijiji, the lesser gods, carry out the physical toil. The Anunnaki are also mentioned in the Enuma Elish, a Babylonian poem describing the creation of the universe. Just as they appear in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest known epic work. Or in the Sumerian myth of Ishtar's descent to the underworld, the Sumerian king list, and other myths, texts, and inscriptions. Did these writings refer to the Anunnaki as beings who came from other worlds? Could there be a connection between the gods and entities of ancient Mesopotamia and those of other ancestral cultures? Is there archaeological evidence suggesting the arrival of extraterrestrial beings on Earth? Or are they symbolic representations, mythical or supernatural beings, as conventional perspectives assert? What follows are highly controversial propositions. They propose a vision vastly different from official historical narratives. We present this as an intellectual exploration, aiming to keep an open mind to new ideas. What you choose to accept or dismiss is up to you. You must draw your own conclusions. As the philosopher Aristotle once said, it is the mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought without accepting it. The Disaster of Nibiru, and The Arrival. The term Anunnaki originates from Sumerian mythology, an ancient civilization that thrived in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, around 4,500 years ago. The etymology of Anunnaki stems from the Sumerian word Anunna, meaning descendants of An. An is the Sumerian god of the sky, regarded as the father of the gods. Ki generally translates to earth, highlighting the celestial connection to the world. According to interpretations by author Zechariah Sitchin of ancient Sumerian tablets, the extraterrestrial Anunnaki resided on a planet called Nibiru. They faced a dire crisis due to severe environmental degradation. Nibiru was enduring a catastrophic climate disaster, with its atmosphere deteriorating at an alarming rate. The only solution the Anunnaki deemed feasible was to locate a substance capable of restoring the atmosphere. They discovered that gold, when dispersed in fine particles within the atmosphere, could reflect and scatter solar radiation, acting as a protective shield. Desperate to save their planet, the Anunnaki began exploring other celestial bodies in search of this precious metal. They arrived at Earth aboard spacecraft capable of undertaking long interplanetary journeys. These vessels utilized anti-gravitational propulsion, enabling them to traverse the vast distances between Nibiru and Earth. Initially, their arrival struck fear in the region of Mesopotamia. This geographical area would later become the cradle of humanity's earliest civilizations. The Anunnaki arrived 450,000 years ago, a time when Earth was inhabited by various hominid species, such as Homo habilis and Homo erectus. The Atrahasis poem describes how the Igigi, secondary gods, were the first to work in the mines. When the gods toiled, the burden was too great, the labor too grueling. Exhausted by the harsh conditions and excessive workload, the Igigi revolted against the Anunnaki. They could no longer endure the physical toil. They destroyed their tools and surrounded the house of Enlil, one of the most important Anunnaki gods, demanding an end to their suffering. In response to this rebellion, the Anunnaki decided to create humankind to take over the heavy labor from the Igigi. Humans were fashioned by combining clay with the blood of a sacrificed god, which granted them a divine essence. The purpose of humanity was to carry out the work, allowing the Igigi and the Anunnaki to rest. This is how the Anunnaki created humans, according to the Atrahasis poem from Mesopotamian mythology. The genetic engineering of the ancestral primate. According to Zacharias Sitchin's modern hypothesis, the Anunnaki did not create humans from clay, but instead used advanced technology. They selected a species of primitive hominid that already inhabited Earth. This was possibly Homo erectus, whose DNA was altered to create a new species, Homo sapiens. Sitchin suggested that this genetic modification could explain humans' superior intellectual and social abilities compared to other species. The first human created by the Anunnaki was named Adamu. He was the initial being with enhanced biology and higher intelligence, making him suitable for the tasks the Anunnaki required. The name Adamu is linked to the word Adama, meaning earth, or clay in Hebrew. Similarly, in the biblical account of Genesis, it is described how God created Adam from the dust of the earth. Then the Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Adam was created by God, not to perform labor, but to be the first inhabitant of the Garden of Eden. In the Bible, the tree of knowledge symbolizes forbidden wisdom. By eating its fruit, Adam and Eve gained the knowledge of good and evil, leading to their expulsion. Their banishment from Eden prevents them from also eating from the tree of life and living forever. Sitchin, on the other hand, interpreted Eden as a site where the Anunnaki established a base of operations, located in what is now Mesopotamia. The Sumerian Eden may have been a kind of laboratory where the first humans were created and genetically modified. Enki, an Anunnaki leader, supported granting knowledge to humans, while his brother, Enlil, opposed it, fearing they would become too powerful. Once the first humans were created, they were allowed to multiply and form a large labor force. Thus, humanity took over mining and other tasks previously performed by the secondary gods. The organization of the Anunnaki. Anunnaki had a highly hierarchical society. They were led by a king and other members of royalty who made decisions for their civilization. In Sitchin's accounts, Anu was the king of the Anunnaki. As the supreme monarch, he had the final say in both political and scientific matters. Family dramas among Anu's offspring, particularly between Enki and Enlil, impacted both the Anunnaki and humanity. Enki, known as the god of wisdom, was the genetic engineer behind the creation of humans. Enlil, on the other hand, held a leadership role, overseeing the enforcement of Anunnaki laws. Beyond resource mining, the Anunnaki shared knowledge with humanity in fields like astronomy, mathematics, architecture, and agriculture. According to Sitchin, their advanced technology and remarkable longevity led humanity to revere them as gods. Physical appearance. The Anunnaki are described as giant beings compared to humans, with an estimated height ranging from 10 to 16 feet, or 3 to 5 meters. Their immense stature gave them an imposing presence, likely contributing to their perception as gods. They are believed to have had large, elongated skulls. Their eyes are often depicted as piercing, giving them an air of wisdom. In some accounts, they are described with golden or bronze-toned skin, tied to their supposed divine or extraterrestrial origins. They are frequently represented wearing elaborate attire made from materials unfamiliar to humans of that era. These were often depicted as armor or robes that appeared to have technological capabilities, such as energy manipulation. While their form was humanoid, they are also described with features hinting at an extraterrestrial nature. The wings, seen in some Mesopotamian carvings, gave them a divine aura, suggesting they could move between dimensions or planets. Some speculate that the Anunnaki used advanced technology to simulate abilities, like levitation, telepathy, and time manipulation. The departure. For millennia, the Anunnaki worked alongside humans, sowing the seeds of knowledge and civilization. However, as with all cycles, their time on Earth came to an end. The situation on Nibiru began to stabilize, lessening the urgency to mine gold. Internal conflicts and challenges to the authority of Anunnaki leaders created an atmosphere of discord. Tensions exacerbated by the rivalry between Enki and Enlil eventually reached a breaking point. The ships that once soared above the Earth began to leave gradually, marking a slow departure. The great gods who had walked among humans and were worshipped as deities started to withdraw. Anunnaki technology became sporadic, and their teachings transformed into the myths and legends we know today. The transfer of power. According to Sitchin's hypothesis, when the Anunnaki left Earth, they did not entirely relinquish control over human affairs. Rather than ruling directly, they appointed human kings to act as representatives of their divine authority. Sumerian tablets, interpreted through the Anunnaki lens, recount how power was bestowed upon individuals who became the first human monarchs. These rulers were chosen to reign in the name of the gods. Their role was to follow the will of the Anunnaki, maintain order, and ensure the enforcement of divine laws on Earth. In some instances, it was said that kings were direct descendants of the Anunnaki, born from unions between gods and humans. The concept of divine blood persisted throughout ancient civilizations, where kings were often regarded as demigods. The King List, the Great Flood, and the Restart of Humanity. The Sumerian King List, inscribed on clay tablets in cuneiform script, has been discovered at various archaeological sites in ancient Mesopotamia. It details the succession of Sumerian kings spanning from allegedly mythical eras to historical periods. The list notes that some kings ruled for extraordinarily long periods, sometimes thousands of years, before a catastrophic event. Ululim is identified as the first human king, ruling after kingship descended from heaven. According to the Anunnaki extraterrestrial hypothesis, this event marks the moment they transferred authority to humans to take control. The King List states that Ululim reigned over Sumer for an astonishing 28,800 years. His successor, Alulgar, ruled the same city for 26,000 years, while Enmenluana governed Bad Tibira for 43,200 years. The reigns of the early kings before the flood span millennia, their lengths being extraordinarily long. Some researchers suggest these rulers were Anunnaki, or human extraterrestrial hybrids, which could explain their extended lifespans. Coming from a planet with a different temporal cycle, the Anunnaki would have had significantly longer lifespans than humans. In his interpretation of Sumerian texts, Sitchin suggests that Anunnaki grew weary of humanity due to its increasing numbers and disobedience. As a solution, they decided to unleash a flood to wipe out humankind. However, the god, Enki, opposed this decision and chose to save one human by giving him instructions to build an ark for survival. Ziusudra is the earliest known protagonist in a Mesopotamian flood story. Enki warns Ziusudra of the god's plan to send a flood to destroy humanity, providing him with guidance to construct a vessel. The myths of Ziusudra inspired the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which Utnapishtim recounts to Gilgamesh how he survived a great flood. Following divine commands, Utnapishtim built an ark and brought aboard his family and animals of every kind. When the flood began, waters engulfed the land for 7 days and nights, destroying everything in their path. The waters rose so high that even the gods were terrified, fleeing to the heavens, frightened by the storm's magnitude, which they had unleashed themselves. As the floodwaters began to recede, Utnapishtim released a dove and a swallow, both of which returned. Later he sent out a raven, which did not come back, signaling it had found land. The biblical account of the flood appears in Genesis, chapters 6 through 9. God, witnessing the wickedness that had overtaken the earth, decided to destroy humanity with a great flood, sparing only Noah and his family, who lived according to his commandments. He instructed Noah to build an ark, providing detailed specifications for its dimension. Unlike Utnapishtim, Noah endured a longer flood. The rains fell for 40 days and 40 nights. Noah released a raven that did not return. Then he sent out a dove, which came back with an olive branch, indicating that the waters were receding. After the flood, Sitchin recounts that the earth was left in ruins, prompting the Anunnaki to reconsider their actions. They chose not to annihilate humanity completely, instead teaching the survivors how to rebuild civilization. The Anunnaki also decided to limit human lifespan, altering their DNA once more to reduce longevity and prevent overpopulation. In addition, humans lost some of the advanced physical and cognitive abilities initially granted to them by the Anunnaki. In this way, post-flood humans would be easier to control and less likely to challenge authority. The flood marked a clear division between the long reigns of the early kings and the shorter reigns that followed. Some post-flood rulers include Emebaragesi of Kish, who reigned for 900 years, and Gilgamesh of Uruk, whose reign lasted 126 years. Similarly, in the Bible, pre-flood patriarchs like Methuselah and Noah lived for centuries, while later generations had significantly shorter lifespans. According to the extraterrestrial Anunnaki hypothesis, Mesopotamian flood narratives reflect the Anunnaki leaders' intent to eradicate humanity. Conventional explanations by archaeologists and scientists, however, suggest that the flood stories are based on large-scale inundations or abrupt climate changes. Gilgamesh, Anunnaki lineage? Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, is the central figure in one of humanity's oldest epic poems, the Epic of Gilgamesh. He is depicted as an extraordinary being, part divine and part human, with immense stature and superhuman strength. In this epic, his mother is the goddess Ninsun, associated with fertility and dreams. According to Anunnaki theories, this divine lineage suggests his mother was an Anunnaki, while his other parent was human. The towering height of Gilgamesh, as shown in reliefs, is attributed to his Anunnaki ancestry. One of Gilgamesh's main motivations in the poem is his quest for immortality. Despite being a powerful king with divine traits, he must confront his partial humanity, which renders him mortal. During his journey, he meets Utnapishtim, the flood survivor in the Babylonian version of the story. Utnapishtim tells him that immortality is not a gift granted to all, but reveals the existence of a plant at the bottom of the sea that restores youth. Gilgamesh retrieves the plant, but a serpent steals it, leading him to realize that true immortality lies in the legacy one leaves behind. The megastructures of the Anunnaki. According to the Anunnaki extraterrestrial theory, these beings arrived on Earth roughly 450,000 years ago. They remained on the planet until the Great Flood, which supposedly occurred around 12,000 years ago, marking a stay of approximately 438,000 years. It is speculated that their advanced technology enabled them to construct megalithic structures, such as the pyramids. These edifices are thought to be part of a global system encompassing other constructions in various regions of the world. Sitchin suggested that the pyramids served purposes beyond being tombs or monuments. He proposed that they were used for scientific and technological purposes, such as navigation markers or energy management hubs. Some argue that the Anunnaki either instructed or oversaw their construction, given the remarkable precision and advanced knowledge required. One theory about the Giza pyramids posits that they are aligned with the constellation Orion. In the case of the Great Pyramid, archaeological studies have shown that its faces are precisely aligned with the cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. One argument in favor of the Anunnaki hypothesis is the sheer difficulty of constructing the Great Pyramid using the primitive technology of the era. Archaeologists estimate that the Great Pyramid was built over a span of approximately 20 years, during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. It consists of around 2 million blocks, ranging from small limestone blocks to massive granite stones used in the inner chambers. The blocks have an average weight of 2.5 tons, with the granite blocks in the King's Chamber weighing up to 70 tons. To complete the pyramid within 20 years, it is calculated that around 800 blocks would have had to be placed each day. This means Egyptian workers would have needed to transport and position that many blocks daily, requiring immense logistics and coordination. According to modern alternative theories, the Anunnaki may have used anti-gravity technology, or some form of free energy to transport and place the blocks. Adding to the mystery connecting the Anunnaki to the pyramids is the Great Sphinx of Giza, located in the front of the pyramids. The Sphinx has puzzled archaeologists due to its age and the absence of clear records regarding its construction. Traditional theories suggest it was built approximately 4,500 years ago, during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra. But some theorists believe it was erected much earlier, by the Anunnaki or under their supervision, representing a guardian of the secrets of this extraterrestrial civilization. On other continents, ancient monumental constructions can also be found. The Great Pyramid of Cholula, the largest pyramid by volume in the world, is another such structure frequently mentioned. It is argued that its scale and complexity suggest knowledge beyond what local cultures of that time would have possessed. Meanwhile, the city of Teotihuacan, near Mexico's capital, was designed with precise astronomical alignment. The Avenue of the Dead, the city's central axis, appears to correspond with the sun's movement on specific days of the year. Additionally, the pyramids of the sun and the moon have direct connections to the solar calendar and astronomical alignments. The Teotihuacans exerted significant influence on the surrounding cultures. Although the Aztecs flourished centuries later, they held Teotihuacan in deep reverence. They believed it was the place where the gods had created the sun and the moon, referring to it as the City of the Gods. Are there connections between the Anunnaki and other ancient civilizations? Mesopotamian accounts, such as the Astrahasis poem, describe how the Anunnaki created humans to serve them. In Egyptian tradition, the god Khnum, the divine potter, shaped humans from clay, forming them from the mud of life. The Egyptians believed that pharaohs, considered direct descendants of the gods, acted as intermediaries between humans and deities. This concept of divine kingship is also found in Mesopotamia, where rulers governed on behalf of the Anunnaki. The belief in a divine connection between rulers and gods may stem from a shared myth or direct Sumerian influence on the Egyptians. Another link between the Anunnaki and Egyptian gods lies in the similarities between some of their deities. Anu is the god of the sky and father of the gods in Sumerian mythology. He has a parallel in Ra, the Egyptian sun god and creator of all deities. Enlil, the god of air, wind, and storms, finds his Egyptian counterpart in Shu, the god of air who separates the sky from the earth. Set, who shares attributes related to weather and natural forces, is another potential counterpart. Enki, the Sumerian god of water, wisdom, creation, and magic, can be compared to Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, writing, and magic. Ptah, the Egyptian creator god and patron of artisans, could also be seen as an equivalent to Enki due to his role in creation and craftsmanship. Similarly, the depiction of gods with hybrid or animal-like features is present in both cultures. The Egyptians portrayed deities with animal heads, such as Horus and Anubis. The Anunnaki, on the other hand, were depicted as humanoid beings with imposing features and symbols of divine power. Egyptian pharaohs like Ramses II were often represented as colossal, almost superhuman figures. Some proponents of Anunnaki theories argue that these pharaohs may have had genetic connections to the gods. Additionally, both the Sumerians and Egyptians possessed remarkable knowledge of astronomy. The Sumerians developed star maps and calendars based on the movements of celestial bodies, enabling them to predict astronomical events. They developed a sexagesimal numerical system, which forms the basis of how we measure time today. The Egyptians recognized constellations such as Orion, pioneered the 365-day calendar, and advanced arithmetic, geometry, and medicine. This fascination with the heavens and celestial bodies ties into the belief that the gods originated from the stars. The pursuit of immortality is another theme shared by Sumerian and Egyptian cultures. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the king longs for eternal life, while Egyptian pharaohs built elaborate tombs to secure their place in the afterlife. For the Egyptians, the afterlife was as significant as earthly existence, and preparation for it was central to their religious beliefs. On the other hand, in the ancient cultures of the Americas, additional parallels can be drawn. Anu may be compared to the Mayan god Itzamna, or the Aztec deity Ometeotl, both regarded as celestial creator gods of the universe. Enlil could be associated with the Mayan god Huracan, or the Aztec god Tlaloc, both linked to weather and storms. Enki aligns with Quetzalcoatl, a deity worshipped by the Olmecs, Mayans, and Aztecs, associated with wind, wisdom, knowledge, creation, and occasionally the planet Venus. At La Venta, an Olmec site, and one of the oldest cultures in the Americas, there is an early depiction of Quetzalcoatl holding a cube in his right hand. Interestingly, this resembles the cubes held in the left hands of the winged genies in Mesopotamian art. The Nephilim, the Book of Enoch, and the Anunnaki. Connection or coincidence? The Book of Enoch is an ancient text that is excluded from most biblical canons, except in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. It describes apocalyptic visions and narratives about fallen angels and giants. The text recounts the stories of Enoch, a biblical patriarch who was taken to heaven, where he received visions of the cosmos, the celestial order, and humanity's fate. Some theories interpret these experiences as encounters with the Anunnaki, suggesting that these beings took Enoch with them. Did the Anunnaki transport Enoch aboard a spacecraft to a distant planet, revealing different parts of the universe to him? The Book of Enoch also mentions the Watchers, celestial beings who took human wives, producing a race of giants called the Nephilim. Because of this act, the Watchers are considered fallen angels, pursued by the faithful angels loyal to God. These fallen angels shared advanced knowledge, skills, and technologies with humans. The Nephilim, their offspring, are described as colossal and possessing extraordinary strength. This physical aspect gave them an aura of dominance over humans, much like the descriptions of the Anunnaki. However, the Nephilim became so destructive and dangerous that their existence was deemed intolerable, necessitating their elimination to restore order. To cleanse the earth of the evil and corruption brought by the fallen angels and the Nephilim, God decided to send the Great Flood. As physical beings, the Nephilim perished along with the other corrupt humans who were not aboard Noah's Ark. This narrative parallels the flood story of the Anunnaki in the Atrahasis poem and other flood legends. Were the Hebrews exposed to Mesopotamian tales, incorporating them into their culture, and eventually into the Bible? Was there a catastrophic flood in this region that inspired the flood narratives? Could the Nephilim be equivalent to the offspring of Anunnaki and humans? The mysteries of human DNA. In 1973, Francis Crick, along with biochemist Leslie Orgel, proposed the theory of distracted panspermia. They developed this idea out of amazement at the complexity and precision of the genetic code. Given the conditions of early Earth, they concluded it was unlikely that life spontaneously arose from inorganic molecules. They noted that this genetic code is nearly universal across all organisms, suggesting a potential common origin. This uniformity led them to consider directed panspermia, the notion that an extraterrestrial civilization sent microorganisms to Earth to seed life. Furthermore, the sophistication of the genetic code might serve as evidence of intelligent design rather than a result of random processes. Crichton-Orgel did not claim this theory as fact, but presented it as a hypothesis to address challenges in theories about the origin of life. Could the idea of directed panspermia relate to the extraterrestrial hypothesis of the Anunnaki? Paleoanthropology dates the appearance of Homo sapiens to approximately 300,000 years ago, during the Pleistocene epoch. For tens of thousands of years, humans behaved similarly to great apes. But between 50,000 and 100,000 years ago, humanity experienced a significant leap in mental abilities, technology, and culture, known as the Cognitive Revolution, or the Great Leap Forward. There is no definitive explanation for this, but it may have been driven by genetic mutations, social adaptation, or environmental factors. Advocates of the extraterrestrial Anunnaki hypothesis argue that these beings facilitated humanity's sudden development. According to this theory, the Anunnaki combined their DNA with that of hominids, thereby creating the first humans. This intervention allegedly gave humanity enhanced brain development, along with the ability to use tools and form complex societies. The Anunnaki proposal and its claim of influencing human DNA lack support from current genetic science. However, certain curiosities in human biology have led some researchers to wonder if there is more to our evolutionary story. Human chromosome 2 has been a subject of great interest in genetic research. At some point in our evolutionary history, two ancestral chromosomes fused to form chromosome 2, a feature absent in other primates. Chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans have 24 pairs of chromosomes, while humans have 23 pairs. Some theorists propose that this chromosomal fusion was an intentional act by the Anunnaki to accelerate human evolution. On another note, approximately 98% of human DNA does not code for proteins, meaning its exact purpose remains unclear. Research suggests it may have regulatory or structural roles, though its full function is still under debate, fueling speculation. Certain theorists suggest this DNA contains hidden traces of genetic manipulation carried out by the Anunnaki. These beings may have left markers within our DNA that, if deciphered one day, could unveil details about our extraterrestrial origins. Traces of the Anunnaki on Earth? In Canyonlands National Park, Utah, peculiar figures created by the Fremont and Anasazi people were discovered. These are thought to represent ceremonies or spiritual guides, though their exact meaning remains unknown. Particularly striking are the anthropomorphic figures in Sego Canyon, with hollow eyes and elongated bodies. The prevailing view is that they depict visions of shamans or supernatural beings. In 1927, local archaeologists uncovered these lines while exploring this region of southern Peru. According to official archaeology, they were created by the Nazca, an ancient Peruvian culture. However, proponents of ancient astronaut theories argue they were made as signals for visitors from other worlds. They claim these giant figures and lines served as landing strips or reference points for spacecraft. Among the most mysterious is the figure known as the astronaut. Similar in nature are the Palpa geoglyphs, first observed in 1926. According to studies, some are attributed to the Nazca, but most were created by the Paracas and Topara cultures. Some resemble small figures or mythical beings, while others appear to wear something akin to a helmet with two extensions. These statuettes, discovered in their ancient Mesopotamian city of Ur, belong to the Ubaid culture, considered a direct precursor to Sumerian civilization. They depict humanoid figures with elongated faces, large eyes, and pointed heads. Often shown in positions of authority or seated on thrones, they likely served a ritual or religious purpose. From an archaeological perspective, they are seen as symbols of beings associated with early cults, while modern authors suggest a connection to the Anunnaki. In northwestern Australia, the Wandjina figures are prominent in Aboriginal culture. These are considered ancestral spiritual beings who descended from the sky to create the earth. They are depicted with large heads, prominent eyes, no visible mouth, and halos around their heads. Viewed as bringers of knowledge and supernatural power, the Wandjina were believed to control rain and storms. Located in the Sahara Desert, Tassili Niger holds a collection of rock art dating back roughly 10,000 years. The artwork includes stylized human figures with large heads and elongated head elements. Some theorists describe these depictions as possible extraterrestrials or ancient gods, though archaeologists largely agree they represent hunting rituals. In the caves of Val Camonica, human figures appear with what looks like round helmets or headgear, with rays emanating from their heads. These have been interpreted by some as beings in spacesuits, but the general consensus identifies them as warriors or shamans. Vimanas are flying vehicles mentioned in ancient Indian texts. They are described as devices used by gods and celestial beings to traverse the earth and sky. According to these accounts, Vimanas were capable of performing incredible maneuvers and flying at great speeds. Modern interpretations compare them to spacecraft or highly advanced airplanes. In certain stories, Vimanas are said to have been equipped with powerful weapons capable of emitting rays or producing fire. Are all these figures and prehistoric works signs of the ancient presence of extraterrestrials or the Anunnaki? There is no evidence to support this, and archaeology dismisses such claims. But each person is free to form their own ideas. Regardless, these figures are fascinating and well worth exploring and studying. Is Nibiru the ninth planet? The planet supposedly home to the Anunnaki, Nibiru, has often been dismissed as a myth. However, NASA and the scientific community have recently discussed the possible existence of a ninth planet, referred to as Planet 9. Could this planet be the Anunnakis' homeland? Planet 9 was proposed to explain the strange orbits of certain Kuiper Belt objects, which cannot be accounted for by current solar system models. These unusual orbits may be influenced by the gravitational pull of a large, distant planet. Calculations suggest that Planet 9 would have a mass approximately 10 times that of Earth. Its orbital period would be vastly longer than Earth's. While Earth completes its orbit around the Sun in 365 days, Planet 9 would take between 10,000 and 20,000 years, following a highly elliptical path. If this planet exists, it would be located at an extreme distance from the Sun, far beyond Neptune's orbit. Nonetheless, Planet 9 has yet to be observed directly. Its existence has only been inferred through calculations and anomalies in the orbits of other celestial bodies. Are Anunnaki or spaceships mentioned in biblical texts? Viewing biblical texts as records of extraterrestrial encounters is a modern theory that has sparked much debate. According to this interpretation, Certain biblical accounts describe interactions with extraterrestrial beings or spacecraft, mistaken as deities by ancient civilizations. One fascinating example comes from the book of the Hebrew prophet Ezekiel. The vision begins as Ezekiel, by the Kebar River, experiences a series of celestial phenomena. He describes 4 living creatures, each with 4 faces, of a man, lion, ox, and eagle, and 4 wings. In Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 15, he says, "As I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside each creature, with its 4 faces. Beside them, he observes something even more astounding. Wheels within wheels that move in all directions without turning. Ezekiel also describes the sound of the living creature's wings as the roar of a great army. Above the creatures and wheels, a sort of platform is mentioned, on which there is a shining throne with a radiant figure seated upon it. Proponents of ancient astronaut theories suggest that these descriptions are primitive interpretations of spacecraft or UFOs. In traditional biblical context, this vision is considered a spiritual portrayal of God's glory. The account of Enoch's rapture, described in Genesis chapter 5, verse 24, is another enigmatic passage in the Bible. It states, "Enoch walked with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away." Although it occupies just a single line in Scripture, it has sparked centuries of speculation about what truly occurred in this event. Enoch, a descendant of Adam through Seth, is one of the few biblical figures who does not experience death. Unlike other patriarchs whose deaths are explicitly mentioned, the text simply states that Enoch disappeared because God took him. In Judeo-Christian tradition, this rapture is understood as a divine act, signifying Enoch's exceptional purity and devotion to God. In modern speculative interpretations, the phrase "God took him" is thought to refer to a technological civilization that interacted with humans in antiquity. In the second book of Kings, the dramatic account of the prophet Elijah being taken to heaven is described. Elijah is walking with his disciple, Elisha, when suddenly the heavens open and a chariot of fire with fiery horses appears. The Book of Kings states, "As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to the heaven in a whirlwind." In religious interpretations, the chariot of fire symbolizes the glory of God. Modern researchers, however, suggest these could have been UFOs or spacecraft, perceived by ancient people who lacked the vocabulary to describe them. The star that guided the Magi to the birthplace of Jesus is another enduring Christmas mystery. The wise men from the east saw in this star a sign compelling them to seek the newborn King of the Jews. It is described as moving ahead of them and stopping over the place where the child was. In Matthew chapter 2, verse 9, it says, "The star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was." This description has led to speculation that the star exhibited controlled movement, almost as if it was directed by an intelligence. This idea, though controversial, suggests that advanced beings may have influenced key events in human history. The passage of the pillar of cloud and fire in Exodus is central to the Israelites' journey to the Promised Land. It is depicted as a guide accompanying them, appearing as a pillar of smoke by day and a pillar of fire by night. The biblical text in Exodus chapter 13 verses 21 through 22 states, "By the day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light." This pillar would have been an awe-inspiring sight, a towering vertical structure visible in the desolate desert landscape. From a religious perspective, the pillar of cloud and fire is seen as a miraculous act of God, symbolizing His constant presence with the Israelites. In more recent times, it has been suggested that the Israelites may have witnessed a form of spacecraft or aerial technology that ancient people could not comprehend. In Revelation chapter 4, verse 1, the Apostle John describes a series of astonishing visions that seem to transcend human understanding. Among these is the image of an open door in the sky. "Come here, and I will show you what you must take. Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after this." John is taken through this door, and what he witnesses is extraordinary. The first thing he describes is a throne with someone seated on it, surrounded by a radiant glow. The scene grows even more overwhelming as he mentions lightning, voices, and thunder emanating from the throne. In front of the throne, there is a sea of glass, adding an almost surreal quality to the vision. Surrounding it, John sees 24 smaller thrones, with 24 elders seated on them, dressed in white and wearing golden crowns. Additionally, he describes 4 living creatures around the throne, covered in eyes and with faces resembling a lion, a calf, a man, and an eagle. From a traditional theological perspective, John's visions are seen as direct revelations of heaven, where he is shown the throne of God. In modern interpretations, the open door in the sky is viewed as a portal, perhaps a form of interdimensional transport, or even an entrance to a spacecraft. The throne surrounded by lightning and thunder could represent an advanced technology beyond ancient understanding, possibly generated by a machine or vessel. The 4 living creatures, covered in eyes and with multiple wings, could be interpreted as non-human entities, drones, or machines. The arrangement of 24 elders on thrones has been viewed by some as a hierarchical structure in an advanced society, or even as a kind of galactic council. There is no denying that these theories are bold, though they do not detract from the profound and striking nature of these biblical passages. Lost technology of the Anunnaki. One of the most intriguing theories suggests that the Anunnaki harnessed free energy, an unlimited power source available anywhere on the planet. It proposes that they used this energy to operate their machines, spacecraft, and massive structures. Proponents of this idea point to Egypt's Step Pyramid of Djoser and other megalithic constructions worldwide as potential energy sources. The assumption is that the Anunnaki shared this knowledge with humans, but over time, it was lost. Another related conjecture is the alleged ability of the Anunnaki to teleport or use interdimensional portals. Some interpretations suggest that Anunnaki traveled from Nibiru aboard advanced spacecraft capable of covering vast distances in a short time. Others theorize that the Anunnaki created interdimensional portals for instantaneous travel. These portals might have also been used to move between parallel universes or realms invisible to humanity. Such technology could explain ancient myths about gates to the underworld, found in various cultures. In Mesopotamian mythology, Urkala, or the underworld, is the subterranean realm ruled by the goddess Ereshkigal. To enter this domain, the dead had to pass through 7 gates, a system of portals connecting the world of the living to another plane of existence. In ancient Rome and Greece, the belief in gates to the underworld, called plutoniums, suggested physical entrances to the realms of the dead. In Mayan mythology, Xibalba is the underworld accessible through subterranean caves in the jungle. Some theorists propose that these gates might have been ancient locations of dimensional portals, manipulated by the Anunnaki. The ancient Egyptians also believed in an underworld called Duat, accessible through hidden doors. To reach the afterlife, deceased pharaohs had to pass through 12 gates, each guarded by deities and protectors. Another technology attributed to the Anunnaki is time manipulation. This ability may have enabled them to accomplish feats such as building massive structures within remarkably short periods. Sumerian and Babylonian architecture is also viewed as evidence of the Anunnaki's technological influence on the daily lives of ancient Mesopotamians. While not as colossal as the pyramids of Giza, ziggurats were impressive structures that required advanced knowledge of engineering and materials. Their stepped design has been interpreted by some as being intended to allow spacecraft to land. Certain ziggurats reached considerable heights for their time, making them visible from great distances across the Mesopotamian plains. For this reason, some theorists suggest they served as visual markers for spacecraft, acting as landing beacons. If the Anunnaki did possess advanced technology, the question remains, what happened to it? One theory proposes that, upon returning to Nibiru, the knowledge imparted by the Anunnaki to humans gradually faded. Over time, humanity lost the ability to understand these tools and technologies, turning them into myths and legends. The loss of technological knowledge is not unknown in history. Other ancient civilizations developed technologies that were later forgotten, such as Greek fire, Damascus steel, the Antikythera mechanism, or Roman concrete. We acknowledge that the possibilities discussed in this chapter may be difficult to believe, but our responsibility is to share them so that each individual can form their own opinion. Could there be Anunnaki archaeological remains in Antarctica? Antarctica remains one of the least explored places on Earth. Its official discovery occurred in the early 1820s. However, a 1531 map created by Orance Fine, a mathematician and cartographer, appears to depict Antarctica, with southern Africa on the left and South America below. Similarly, the 16th century map by Piri Reis also shows a landmass in the south. Did Orance Fine or Piri Reis have knowledge of Antarctica's geography? According to historians, they had no way of knowing about this continent. At the time, it was common practice to invent islands or geographical details. Specifically, these maps seem to be based on the era's belief that a southern continent existed to balance the lands of the north. On another note, has Antarctica ever been ice-free long enough to harbor archaeological ruins? During the meltwater pulse 1b, approximately 15,000 years ago, fragments of a comet impact or increased solar activity likely caused global temperatures to rise. However, this climate variation primarily affected the ice sheets of the northern hemisphere and was not so intense enough to melt Antarctica's massive ice cover. So, has Antarctica ever been ice-free during Earth's history? Yes, but these events occurred tens to hundreds of millions of years ago, long before humans appeared. The shift to icy conditions in Antarctica began around 34 million years ago, at the end of the Eocene and the start of the Oligocene. Ice accumulated, and by the end of the Oligocene and into the Miocene, 5 to 10 million years ago, the continent was covered by a thick ice sheet, much like today. About 100 million years ago, Antarctica was part of Gondwana, a supercontinent with warmer climates and abundant biodiversity. In fact, fossils of ferns, conifers, and other plant species have been discovered on the continent. Remains of dinosaurs have also been unearthed in some regions. Thus, it's possible that fossils of other unknown animals exist and could be exceptionally well preserved. Low temperatures slow organic decomposition, which can preserve bone structures and, in some cases, even soft tissues. Because of its isolation and extreme conditions, much of Antarctica remains unexplored, leaving room for speculation. In other regions previously uncovered by ice, such as parts of Europe and North America, archaeological remains have been uncovered. For example, in the European Alps, retreating glaciers have revealed significant discoveries, like Otzi, the Copper Age mummy. Similarly, in North America, a glacial retreat has exposed artifacts from native cultures that lived there before the last ice age. While ruins are not expected in Antarctica, melting ice could reveal fossils or geological formations that reshape our understanding of Earth's history. Regardless, the fascination with the frozen continent is immense, and future explorations might uncover astonishing discoveries. Additionally, several geological and magnetic anomalies have been detected in Antarctica, prompting speculation about hidden structures beneath the ice. In the northern part of the continent, what appear to be aligned pyramids have been discovered. However, The official explanation is that these are natural formations. In the southern part of Antarctica, there are formations resembling caverns. Some have interpreted these as potential entrances to settlements of cryptoterrestrials, humanoid beings believed to have coexisted with humanity for millennia. Did cryptoterrestrials establish a base in Antarctica? Could they have done so in the distant past? Is it possible that other advanced species, currently unknown to us, once inhabited Antarctica? Do cryptoterrestrials exist? Are they connected to the Anunnaki? Although the cryptoterrestrial theory may sound like science fiction, it is being seriously considered as an explanation for UFO sightings. This theory suggests that UFOs and their entities are not extraterrestrial, but rather a hidden civilization that has coexisted with humanity for millennia. It posits that these beings and their crafts have always been on Earth, residing in oceans, mountains, or underground. This species might have developed technologies far superior to those of humans, enabling them to remain undetected while sharing the planet. Advocates of the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis argue that ancient myths about gods or spirits stem from encounters with these beings. UFO sightings, they suggest, are not modern phenomena, but have historical roots. On the other hand, proponents of the Anunnaki extraterrestrial hypothesis maintain that most Anunnaki departed, but some stayed on Earth. Could cryptoterrestrials be the Anunnaki who remained? In some reports of beings linked to UFOs or similar phenomena, cryptoterrestrials are described as wearing tight or luminous suits. Certain accounts depict them as larger than human figures, almost giant-like, aligning with interpretations of the Anunnaki. Are UFOs connected to the Anunnaki? UFOs are known for performing maneuvers that seem impossible for human aircraft. There have been testimonies about vehicles and beings of non-human origin. Some alleged witnesses claim that the extraterrestrial crafts, seen in secret bases, were recovered from archaeological excavations. Perhaps what is observed in the skies are the same ships belonging to beings who visited Earth in the past. Could the Anunnaki be observing or interacting with humanity today, in a manner similar to what, according to theories, they did in ancient times? The answer is that there is no concrete evidence linking the Anunnaki to modern UFOs. While official reports acknowledge unidentified aerial phenomena, they do not attribute these events to extraterrestrial activity, let alone to the Anunnaki. The weapons of the Anunnaki: advanced technology or tools of mass destruction. Throughout human history, stories of the gods' weapons have been a central theme in myths and legends. If the Anunnaki had the technology to travel between planets, did they also wield advanced weaponry to establish their rule over humanity? Ancient Mesopotamian legends often reference sacred artifacts used by the gods to exert their power. Some theorists argue that these weapons were advanced technologies capable of causing massive destruction, comparable to modern nuclear weapons. Sumerian texts mention the concept of Me, a collection of divine powers that the gods possessed. Enki was the custodian of the Me, granting him authority over various aspects of the universe and humanity. However, it has been proposed that the Me symbolized advanced technological knowledge. One possible Me could have been a weapon of mass destruction that Enlil used in the battle for control of Earth. According to mythological accounts, Enlil wielded the evil wind, a fearsome weapon described as a destructive storm that ravaged cities and unleashed chaos. Some compare this weapon to phenomena linked to a nuclear explosion or advanced climate control technology, capable of causing catastrophes. An inscription mentioning the Me appears in the Sumerian poem The Descent of Inanna into the Underworld. A fragment states, "She gathered the divine powers and held them in her hand." Could this be a reference to some form of advanced technology? In the Epic of Gilgamesh, another passage reads, "The heavens roared and the earth rumbled. Then a profound silence fell, and darkness hovered. Lightning flashed, and a fire broke out. Where the blaze grew thickest, death rained down." Is this describing a massive explosion? In the Enuma Elish, a Babylonian poem about the creation of the universe, another passage states, "Then the Lord raised the lightning, his mighty weapon, and mounted the chariot." Could the lightning be an energy-based weapon, and the chariot an aerial vehicle? In the Mahabharata, an Indian mythological text over 2,300 years old, there are frequent mentions of missiles, weapons, energy battles, gods, and wars. In Canto 197, it states, "Then Arjuna invoked the Brahmastra, In an instant, all darkness was dispelled. Cool winds began to blow, and all directions of the sky became clear and bright. Could this describe a battle involving a nuclear weapon or a directed energy weapon? In some ancient depictions of gods, particularly in Sumerian and Babylonian reliefs, figures are shown holding cylindrical objects. Is it possible that these objects were portable energy-based weapons or anti-gravity devices? One example suggesting the use of weapons of mass destruction by the Anunnaki is the biblical account of Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction. The story describes fire and brimstone raining from the sky, reducing the cities to ash in a catastrophic event. Although this account is framed within Judeo-Christian religious tradition, some theorists propose that the cities were obliterated by an extraterrestrial weapon. Zechariah Sitchin referenced ancient texts about geological studies of the Dead Sea region to argue that signs of a large explosion are present there. However, this claim remains controversial, with no definitive evidence supporting such an explosion. On which planet in the Milky Way could an intelligent civilization exist? Assuming the Anunnaki or another extraterrestrial species originate from a planet in the Milky Way, we can speculate on possible locations. The Milky Way is estimated to contain between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. It is believed that most of these stars have at least one exoplanet. This means there are likely at least 100 billion exoplanets in the galaxy. Among these, between 6 billion and 40 billion are thought to be potentially habitable. While hundreds of exoplanets have been discovered, let's focus on a few with the greatest potential for life. KOI 4878.01, located 1,100 light-years away, could be the most Earth-like planet discovered so far, completing an orbit around its star every 449 days. If its existence is confirmed, the likelihood of some form of life on its surface is considered high. Teegarden B, just 12 light-years away, lies within the habitable zone of its star and has a size and temperature similar to Earth's. Its habitability is rated excellent, with an Earth similarity index of 0.93. Proxima Centauri b is the closest potentially habitable planet to Earth, located just 4.23 light-years away. It is believed to have temperatures suitable for liquid water, which could support chemical processes associated with life. TRAPPIST-1e, situated 39 light-years away, orbits an ultra-cool star, receiving energy levels comparable to those on Earth. Its Earth-like size suggests a rocky composition, along with the potential presence of an atmosphere and a solid surface. Kepler 452b, located 1,400 light-years away, has been nicknamed Earth's older cousin. This implies that evolutionary processes on Kepler 452b could have advanced further than those on Earth. The prophecy of the Anunnaki's return. Some interpretations of Sumerian tablets suggest that the Anunnaki might return, bringing irreversible changes to humanity. Their return could trigger a series of global events that would forever alter life on Earth. One potential outcome would be the revelation of the true origins of humanity. We would have to confront the possibility that humans are not the product of natural evolution, but rather the result of genetic manipulation. This realization could spark an existential crisis on a global scale, transforming our understanding of the cosmos. If they were to return, their intentions might include correcting humanity, especially if they believe we have not progressed as they anticipated. A fascinating possibility is that the Anunnaki's return could mark the beginning of contact between humanity and galactic civilizations. The Anunnaki might not be the only extraterrestrial beings in the universe, but rather members of a network of advanced races. However, this is not the only prophecy about intelligent extraterrestrial beings visiting our planet. The Native American Hopi tribe has a rich tradition of myths and legends passed down through generations. Among these stories is the belief in star beings, entities that descended from the heavens to interact with humans. Could these beings be the Anunnaki? One of the Hopi's most intriguing legends is that of the Star Children, said to be the direct descendants of these extraterrestrial entities. The star beings shared their wisdom with humans and had children with tribal women, resulting in offspring with exceptional abilities. These children are raised within the Hopi community, but are taken back to the skies by the star beings at the age of 6. Some of these children, however, remain on Earth, growing up among the Hopi, and taking on important roles within the tribe. The Hopi believe these children have a vital purpose for humanity's future, as they are tasked with restoring balance to the world. Their mission also includes preparing Earth for the arrival of a celestial being who will mark the end of the current cycle of humanity and the beginning of a new era. Similarly, the Dogon people, a tribe in Mali, hold a fascinating belief in beings called the Nomos, who came from the Sirius star system in a spacecraft. This tribe possesses advanced astronomical knowledge of Sirius, the brightest star visible from Earth. They possess astonishing knowledge about Sirius B, a white dwarf star, including its density and small size, details that align with scientific discoveries. The Dogon also mention a third body in the Sirius system, Sirius C, whose existence has been debated but not confirmed. The Nomos are described as hybrid beings, part human and part fish, resembling aquatic creatures. According to the myths, they had great powers and were the ones who introduced the Dogon to the first teachings of agriculture, astronomy, and religion. These beings are said to have lived among humans for a time before returning to the cosmos. While the Dogon's knowledge is remarkable, the accuracy of their information has been questioned. Some researchers argue that the Dogon acquired this data through contact with European explorers or missionaries who were already aware of Sirius B. What do archaeology and mainstream science say? For the vast majority of scientists, the idea that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrials who came to Earth lacks evidence. No archaeological remains have been found to suggest extraterrestrial technology or contact between ancient civilizations and beings from other planets. It is true that some ancient cultures describe their gods as celestial beings, descending from the sky, evoking the idea of visitors from another world. However, from an archaeological perspective, these accounts are seen as symbolic representations of natural or cosmic forces. Ancient Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki as deities who created humanity to work the land and extract resources. According to archaeology, these stories aim to explain the origins of life and society, rather than being literal accounts of historical events. Thus, for most scientists, the theory of extraterrestrial Anunnaki faces significant challenges. It is also argued that ancient mythologies are complex, and isolating specific elements from their cultural context is problematic. One widely debated topic has been the pyramids. According to mainstream archaeology, pyramids of Egypt do not require extraterrestrial intervention to be explained. The consensus is that the Egyptians had access to a large workforce, knowledge of geometry, and local materials. It is believed that a sizable labor force of skilled workers, rather than slaves, constructed the pyramids. Evidence from worker villages and tombs suggests they were organized into teams and provided with food, shelter, and medical care. Limestone blocks were quarried locally, while the granite used in the interior chambers came from the Aswan, about 500 miles or 800 kilometers away. Discoveries such as the Diary of Merer indicate that boats and canals were used to transport stones along the Nile to the construction site. Reliefs, like those in the tomb of Jehuda-Hotep, depict sledges being used to drag stones, with water possibly poured ahead to reduce friction. One theory involves the use of straight, zigzag, or encircling ramps that allowed workers to move stones to higher levels. However, the exact methods for lifting and placing massive stones, especially at the higher levels, remain uncertain. While ongoing archaeological research continues to uncover new information, without definitive evidence, the precise techniques of the ancient Egyptians will remain a historical mystery. This concludes our fascinating journey through the history of the Sumerians, the Anunnaki, and intriguing alternative theories. Hypotheses such as crypto-terrestrials, the Anunnaki as extraterrestrials, or UFOs in biblical texts remain speculative and lack support from conventional science. Even so, there may still be countless mysteries to uncover and much to learn. Exploring these theories encourages us to keep an open mind, challenge our assumptions, and nurture our curiosity.